Hey guys, welcome back. Today is day 62, and today we're going to learn how to multiply polynomials. So last class we learned how to add and subtract them, and we will be using that in today's lesson. Okay, but we're going to first start out and we're going to multiply a monomial meaning one term, times another monomial. All right, so if we multiply them together, a lot of times you see them one right next to the other with a parentheses. So to multiply these two together, you look at the coefficients. 3 times 6 is 18, and then you use your rules of exponents. X squared times x to the third, when we multiply, the rule is we add, so we get x to the fifth. And our y times y to the first times y to the seventh would be y to the eighth, and that would be our answer. Okay, so first we look at number 2. We look at the coefficient, -2. -2 times 1/2, again with fractions. If you had -2 over 1 times 1/2, we'd go straight across and you'd get a -1. Okay, so this is going to be a -1 or just negative. And your a times a squared would be a to the third. Rule is we add them. And your b would be to the second power or squared. And your c would just be what's inside c to the third. So that would be your final answer. Okay, the third one, your 4 times 7 is 28. Your x to the third times x to the fourth would be x to the seventh. Your y to the fifth times y squared would be y to the seventh, because we just add the 5 plus 2, and then we just have a z. So that would be your answer there. Okay. All right. Now, if we multiply a monomial, meaning 1 times a binomial, so 1 term times 2 terms, it's like you're just going to distribute. Okay. So your a times a would be a squared, and your a times 8 would be 8a. Always list the coefficient out front. Okay, the number and then the variable. All right, and we want our answer to start at the highest exponent and go down. So we got a squared plus 8a. All right, the next one, 3x times x would be 3x squared. And 3x times a -3 would be multiply your coefficient. You get a -9, and there would just be an x. Number 6, we distribute and get -35. In this case, your y would be to the third power. Okay, and then -5 times -8 is +40, and your y would be to the fourth power. Okay, so with this one, though, we want to make sure we start at the highest exponent, which is 40y to the fourth, and then we subtract 35y to the third. So notice we started at the fourth power, then we went down to the third. We just switched them. Okay, number 7, we're going to multiply. We get 12x to the fourth power, and this would be a -4, and it would just be x squared. Okay. 2xy times 2x would be 4. Your x would be squared, and then y. And then 2 times -3 is -6. Your x would be to the first power, and your y would be squared in this case. Now with number 9, I prefer to take the monomial and switch the order. So the commutative property of multiplication says that I can rewrite this. Okay, and I choose to do that. I switch the order, I pull the -x out front, and then I distribute this way. So I've got a -3x to the third power, and then a negative times a negative is a positive, and my 4 would be x squared. Okay, now I'm taking a monomial times a trinomial, meaning 3 terms, and it's going to work the same way. I'm just going to distribute, only this time I'm going to do it to 3 terms. This would be x to the fourth plus x to the third plus x squared. All right, 11. And if at any time, I really recommend you pause the video and try some yourself. This would be -12 x to the fifth minus 32 x to the fourth plus 36 x to the third. Okay, same thing for number 12. We're just going to do a bunch of these examples. This would be 5y to the third minus 15y squared plus 5y. All right, and you get a little more complicated here with multiple variables, so works the same way. 3 times 8 is 24. X squared times x would be x to the third, and our y would be squared. So we're really using these properties of exponents. Be very careful. All right, if you need to put a 1 in so that you don't forget, okay, you can do that. All right, so the second one, 3 times negative 5 would be negative 15. Your x would be to the third power, and your y would be to the first. And then the final term would be negative 18 x squared y. Okay, writing a little big, I'll try to squeeze them in. All right, 14, we're going to distribute it 3 times here. This one would be a negative 3, oops, forgot to multiply, so it's going to be negative 3 times 4 is going to be negative 12. Negative 12, my b is to the fourth power. Negative 3 times negative 12 is a positive 36. My b would be to the third power, and then we're going to get a positive 21b. All right, and then 15, again, I'm going to switch the order of this, and I'm going to put my negative 3x squared out front, and then I'm going to multiply 3x to the fourth minus 5x squared minus 4. So when I multiply through, I get negative 9x to the sixth plus 15x to the fourth plus 12x squared. Okay, so we're doing a lot of distributing, and we're being very careful about the properties of exponents. All right, so now it gets a little bit more complicated. Now we've got a binomial times a trinomial. Notice we've got 2 terms out front. All right, so what we're going to do is it's like we're double distributing, okay? So we're going to take this 2x and we're going to multiply it by every term. So we're going to say 2x times 3x squared plus 4x minus 2. All right, and then we're going to take a 1 and distribute it to the same thing, 3x squared plus 4x minus 2. All right, so it's like we double distribute. All right, and we do what we just did, so this would be 6x to the third plus 8x squared minus 4x plus 3x squared plus 4x minus 2. All right, so notice if I have a 2 by 3, binomial times trinomial, I should have 2 times 3, I should have 6 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I do. However, now at this point, we can use what we learned last class and we can combine our like terms, okay? So in this case, I'm going to take the 8x squared and the 3x squared, and I'm going to add them together. So I start at the highest exponent, 6x to the third. Now I've got 11, because remember, you're just adding the coefficients, 11x squared. All right, but now my 4x, I have a negative 4x and a positive 4x, so they're going to cancel out. So I'm just going to cancel those out, and then I just have a negative 2. So there's my final answer. Okay, we do the same thing with number 17. We're going to take 5y, multiply it by 2y squared minus 3y plus 4, and then take the negative 7 and distribute it as well. So we're going to set that up with this line right here. I'm going to multiply through. I get 10y to the third minus 15y squared plus 20y minus, now I'm right here, 14y squared, all right, plus 21y minus 28, okay? So I did that double distributing. I have my 6 terms. Now I'm going to combine my likes. So I don't have any likes that are to the third power, but I do to the second. So I start out with 10y to the third. Then I've got a negative 29y squared. I'm going to combine this positive 20 and positive 21y, and I'm going to get 41y. 41y squared. No, yeah, 41y squared. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's going to be 20y. Oh, it's just 2y. That's what I did wrong. Okay, just 41y. All right, and then that's going to be minus 28. Got lost there for a minute. There we go. All right, so let's look at number 18. Okay, so again, I will set it up. I'm going to take the 3x and I'm going to kind of think of this 3x minus 1 being here on the left, but I'm going to take 3x and multiply it by 2x squared minus x minus 2, and then a negative 1 times 2x squared minus x minus 2. Now I distribute, so I'll get 6x to the third minus 3x squared minus 6x minus, and then this is going to be a negative, now I'm here, negative 2x squared plus x plus 2, because I distributed that negative 1. All right, now I combine. I don't have any to the third power, so it's 6x to the third, but I can combine the negative 3x squared and the negative 2x squared, and when I do that, I get negative 5x squared. I've got a negative 6 and a positive 1x is going to be a negative 5x. All right, and then a plus 2. There we go. Okay, so the next one's going to be negative 4y minus 8. So I'm going to set this up. Negative 4y times 2y to the third plus 5y minus 2. Okay, and then I'm going to distribute a negative 8 times 2y to the third plus 5y minus 2. Okay, so now I'm going to distribute, and when I do that, I get negative 8y to the fourth. So I'm right here, and then I have a negative 20y squared plus 8y minus 16y to the third, so I'm right here now, minus 40y plus 16. All right, the negative 8 times negative 2. Now I combine my like terms. I start at the highest exponent, negative xy to the fourth. I don't have any that I can combine, so it's just going to be a negative 16y to the third. Okay, but I can, let's see if I can combine any y squareds. Nope, doesn't look like I can. So I just have negative 20y squared. Okay, but I can combine 8y and negative 40y. Okay, so then that's going to be a negative 32y. And then I can I combine any constants? Nope, so it's just plus 16. Whew, that's a long one. All right, so that would be simplified. All right, so now we're going to look at a polynomial times a polynomial, so a binomial times a binomial. So we want to double distribute and then combine like terms. So we're going to use a method called FOIL, and you're going to hear this a lot. First, outer, inner, last. FOIL, F-O-I-L. And we're going to use this a lot when we start to factor in the next unit. So it's just a way to multiply a binomial times a binomial. When I say the first, okay, I mean my first is right here, the two first terms in each of them. So I'm going to take x times x. That's my first. My outer is going to be x times 3, okay? Or we could say 3 times x, because we always like to put the number first. My inner is the inner two terms, and that's 4 times x. And then my last would be 4 times 3. And that's how we set up a FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. And now we just multiply. We've got x squared plus 3x plus 4x plus 12. So when we do this, our like terms are right here in the middle. We get x squared plus 7x plus 12. All right. So with a binomial times a trinomial in this way, we're just going to go through and double distribute. So think about that FOIL method. We're going to be using that again, but this one right here, we're not going to FOIL, but we're going to double distribute. So this becomes, just like we were just doing, x times x squared, okay, plus x times negative 4x. All right, but I'm going to actually write it out. X times x squared minus 4x plus 5, and then 3 times x squared minus 4x plus 5. Many of you will need this step right here, okay? Then what you're doing is you're just distributing, and that's what I'm doing on the next line. So then I've got an x times 5, or 5 times x. The next one would be 3 times x squared, okay, plus 3 times a negative 4x plus a 3 times 5. Whew. Okay, so now when I multiply through, I've got x to the third minus 4x squared plus 5x plus 3x squared minus 12x plus 15. All right, we combine our like terms. The only ones that are like are this negative 4x squared and the positive 3x squared. So we started at our highest exponent. We've got x to the third. When we combine those two, we've got a negative 1x squared or negative x squared. We also can combine 5x minus 12x. So we get a negative 7x and then plus 15. Okay. All right, so if you ever encounter an example like this, 2x plus 1 squared, highly recommend writing it out, okay? Because at first glance, what you want to do is you think, oh, this can't be so hard. And you take 2x and you square it, and you 1 and you square it, and you would get this, which would be, what, 4x squared plus 1. Well, that's actually wrong, okay? So you want to do it, you write it out, and then you double distribute, or you can think of it as FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. So you're going to take your first, which is 2x times 2x. Okay. All right, I'm going to write this above it so I can do, oops, let me do that again. Hold on. Let me just start this one over. So we got 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 1. So my first would be 2x times 2x. My outer would be 2x times 1. My inner would be 1 times 2x, and my last would be 1 times 1. So when we write this out, we get 4x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 1. So when we combine those middle terms, our final answer is 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. So see the difference between the one that was wrong and the one that's correct. The one that, if you just try to square each term, you're going to forget about that middle 4x, okay? So the binomial, now the binomial to the third power, all right, you want to write it 3 times and then double distribute. So this is probably the hardest one, okay? So I'm going to take 2x plus 1 and multiply it by 2x plus 1 again, and multiply it by 2x plus 1. So that's how I can represent 2x plus 1 cubed. All right, so I'm going to take the whole thing and multiply it out, and I'm going to start out with first, outer, inner, last, so I'll get 4x. My outer is 4x squared. My outer would be 2x. My inner would be 2x. My last would be 1. All right, and again, now I'm multiplying that whole thing by 2x plus 1. But I'm going to start and simplify what's inside first. So I've got 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. And I take that, and again, I'm multiplying it by 2x plus 1. So I'm going to double distribute here. So I'm going to take 4x squared times 2x. It's going to be 8x to the third. Okay. 2x times 4x is going to be 8x squared. 2x times 1 is 2x. 1 times 4x to the third is 4x squared rather. 1 times 4x squared is 4x squared. 1 times 4x is 4x. And 1 times 1 is 1. Whew. Now when I finally combine my like terms, I end up with 8x to the third. All right, I can combine 8x squared and 4x squared, and I get 12x squared. My 2x and my 4x is 6x, and then plus 1. There's your final answer. Okay, so the next examples are simply a bunch of multiplications and practice. So I want you to take this knowledge, practice them, and look at the answer key, compare them to the answer key that is on Schoology. Okay, highly recommended you do these practice problems in addition to the homework. Okay, all right, bye-bye.